Welcome, everybody. We have another special guest on the Grow Your Tutoring Business podcast today. It's Arthur Moore, who is a fellow podcaster, educator, an all-round good guy. We had a great conversation about his journey away from teaching. He went and moved to Thailand for 4 years before coming back and setting up his tutoring business. What I really love about this episode is you're going to hear somebody who is setting up his business in a way that suits his life. His values are really strong. Get your notepads ready and enjoy. Right, welcome back, everybody. We've got a special guest, Arthur Moore. Some of you may already know him. In the world of LinkedIn over the last kind of 6 or 7 weeks, which is when I first started really trying to engage with the platform, I think you came up relatively fast on my radar. I think some things came up on our, LinkedIn's kind of a strange place, isn't it? Because it will show you almost like random people that isn't in your network if they think it's going to be somebody you want to connect with. And I put a couple of posts out and you was really fast, like, yeah, I'm up for being on a podcast. And it was like, yeah, okay, here's the link, let's do it. And
that does sound exactly like me, Richard. That sounds exactly like me, Rich.
Since then, I've connected with the Tea and Teaching podcast, but I know you have a separate one as well. And from an educational point of view, I've really enjoyed it. And we were just talking off before we was recording, and I was getting really angry earlier on at some of an earlier podcast, probably from about 2 years ago, where you was talking about phrases in education that should be binned, or the ones that really kind of stir up emotions. And that was fascinating. It was really interesting to hear and who do you record that podcast with?
I co-host that with Mike Harwell, who's an old colleague of mine and still a leader in schools across the UK.
It's worth a listen. So we were debating before, or you were debating before, about whether to promote your own business or the podcast. You've gone for the podcast.
I always go podcast. No, you listen to this podcast and then you go and listen to Tea and Teaching. I'll get it the right way around. Don't worry.
The right way around. No, that's fine. And it's actually really interesting. I think I've gone back quite a couple of years, but there's quite a lot to catch up on. But they're really interesting for us who are, passionate educators, whether you're still in school or not. They're really interesting. So anyway, thank you for being a guest. There's a really interesting route we could take this conversation down. Can we just start right at the very beginning about just you as a teacher, where you started and then where you ended up? And I'm sure we'll end up hearing about everything because it does sound really interesting.
Yeah, so I was at uni doing a course called Management and Strategy with Integrated Industrial Year or something. Like, it kind of meant nothing. So I did my integrated industrial year working for Microsoft, and very quickly realized, like, maybe the world of big business and corporate turnover and profit shit, that wasn't really my world. So I kind of came out of that, not really sure what I was going to do. And then Teach First came a knocking at my university, and it was just right people at the right time. My mum was a primary school teacher, so I knew about the world. My girlfriend, who I was living with, who's now my wife, was in her NQT year at the time. So it hit me, and I was like, do you know what? Let's go for it. So very quickly threw my hat into that. And what I like about Teach First is it just kind of throws you into schools. You have your 6 weeks training and then bang, you're in school. So I was teaching up at a school near Birmingham for a couple of years, secondary maths, I should say. So that's kind of my background, secondary maths teacher. Really interesting school, interesting background. It was a very interesting, different school, Rich. Like, they did things differently at this school. So our lessons were 3 hours long.
What? Listen to something like this earlier on in your podcast. I was like, a 3-hour-long lesson.
We had giant classrooms, so there would be rooms of 90 kids with 3 teachers teaching separate lessons in one area.
I know the model you're talking about.
Yeah, no staff rooms, that kind of vibe. Yeah. So really interesting. Was lucky to have some great colleagues, really supportive head teacher. So that was kind of my introduction to the world of education. And then me and my then fiance, she's going to keep coming up, decided to go and teach abroad. So we got jobs and went and taught in Thailand for 4 years, which is just an experience in itself. Like, the teaching, the life, the life of teaching abroad. So it was an English speaking school out there, but still teaching maths. I wasn't teaching English. I was teaching kind of maths. So spent 4 pretty awesome years out there. Did some really cool things that you just maybe wouldn't get to do in UK education. So got to do all the awesome teaching stuff with awesome kids and kind of maybe a culture that's more receptive to teaching within its culture.
Okay.
Was lucky enough to lead some pretty cool trips. So I used to lead trips to New Zealand, across Thailand, led a couple of trips to Tanzania to try and climb Kilimanjaro. And we succeeded one time.
All right. So that was a multiple thing. You did that more than once.
Yes. Tried twice to climb Kilimanjaro, failed the first time due to weather, and then we got it the second time.
Nice.
Which was pretty cool. So kind of opening my eyes to other things in education. By this time was a head of year and leading kind of year 6, year 7 transition process. So just doing a lot more involved in education. And then me and my now wife had our first son. And when he reached his first birthday, pretty much we came back to the UK just because it was kind of time to come back, reconnect with family. We both got jobs in schools, a school I won't name.
Okay.
It's not hard to find. A school I won't name. And it just didn't, let's say we weren't good fits for that school at that time.
Were you both in the same school?
Us. We both in the same school as head of departments. Yeah. But let's just say like we weren't a good fit for the school. The school wasn't a good fit for us at that moment in our lives in the school cycle. So I decided to leave the classroom, which I've kind of been thinking about for a while, Richard, kind of.
So how long into your teaching career are you now? How many?
So 5 years qualified.
Yeah.
I would count that 6 years in. I'm in my 7th year of teaching. Yeah. I count both my teach years as full years of teaching because it pretty much is. So I've been a head of year, head of department, and I was just kind of like reassessing everything and decided to kind of take a step away from the classroom, had a young family, and kind of needed a break from the classroom, I think, overall. And that's when I started tutoring. I'd kind of dabbled in tutoring beforehand, bits here and there, as many teachers have. And I was getting loads of interest from parents being like, oh, can I recommend you to a friend? Or can this person? Or can my brother? Or like, and I just went, do you know what? Let's give it a go. So I said to my wife, like, I'm going to give this a go for 6 months. If it's failing, like I teach secondary maths, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
I'll be okay. Which is not true for every subject, but unfortunately it's true for maths. But it did work out. And that's still kind of my day-to-day, what I do now, Richard. I tutor maths online.
And how long have you been doing that for?
So full time for probably 2.5 years now, just under. I went self-employed on the 1st of January. I made a real point. New year, new year, new me. And kind of went for that. So so still involved in education, but kind of online tutoring. Maths is my day-to-day.
So you're just fully online.
Fully online. I've never tutored in person. I've always done it online. And the way after COVID, like the industry just changed. So there's tutors who like were tutoring one-to-one, but are now online. There's still this hybrid model. I still know awesome tutors who go into schools and classrooms and have their own offices and stuff. But for me, it suits me to be in my attic upstairs online.
Yeah. It's nice to have a space, isn't it, actually, to do it? Like, I remember when I first started to go over COVID, it was at my dining room table, which was a dining room, living room combined. So it was like everybody had to vacate.
Yeah.
It was like, I've got to do it. You've got to go somewhere else because I need to do this. You need to be quiet. And it wasn't fair.
It's one thing I talk a lot about people when they start to go self-employed, like any advice or anything like that. I'm just like, get an area that is work. Like in an ideal world, that's a separate room. But even if it's not a separate room, have a separate table or separate desk or something you can put away. Like try and create that divide. Otherwise, you're either always at work or always at home. Neither of which is kind of healthy.
No, that's right. Definitely. Like just that general boundaries, actually. Like it's quite good to just start going like that is work, that is home. And like even if it is just a little coffee table where you put your bits. Mine was like printer. Like I had this little IKEA, do you know, like the IKEA Kallax stuff where you have like the little cubes.
There are several in the room I'm sitting in.
So yeah, I had a printer on top, and then I had my 4 cubes underneath with all my stuff in. That was it. That was my little workspace. That's where it
Yeah.
started off. Yeah, but then I was still driving around. I was still driving around to people before COVID. That was how I started.
Yeah, I literally have like a work shirt which I'm wearing now, which has my logo on, and I will put that to go to work.
Yeah,
And I
it's
will
interesting.
like
Yeah,
I will take that off before I go downstairs to try and have some form of separation. It's hard, but it's there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So when you first started going into the tutoring stuff, you said you kind of dabbled with it before, but this was you going self-employed. You're making a point of becoming a business owner. What was the hardest thing?
Like I was never worried about the teaching. Like that's my trade. That's my go-to. So I wasn't worried about that. It was just all the like just being in a school is so unlike being in a business, especially when you're kind of middle management in a school. Like it's different when you go senior leadership, head teacher, completely different. But like being a head of year 7 doesn't naturally kind of then mean I'm going to be good at getting my pricing structures right, or how to get customers, or how do I file my tax returns and all stuff like this. So it was the nitty gritty of like having a business. Like, do I set up a bank account? How do I do that? Do I want a business? I remember spending hours researching which should I use, a business or personal account? And I'm sure it's made utterly no difference. I went for like a separate personal account, but like I spent so much time researching things that maybe I should have known, or you just don't know when you're in schools.
I think it is unknown, and also, like, did you go straight out of uni into teaching? Like, so there's that. Well, I don't know. You did a strategy course, like with I know there's that was it management and strategy and
Management and strategy with integrated placement year. So like I did a lot of courses on like the psychology of leadership and a bit of marketing, but I did a lot of like how to create culture and teams and stuff like that.
The
Like I did
organizational type change and culture.
Yeah, organizational behavior was kind of my like what I really enjoyed. When I went to Microsoft's too far the other way. Like it's such a huge company. Like you don't get to see like even one pixel of the picture. Like you're within the pixel of the pixel of the pixel.
Yeah, massive companies. Yeah, it's completely different, isn't it? When you start, I mean, I did a business degree, so a lot of what we did was talk about that organizational. I can't think what it was now. It was organizational something, and I think it was management. It might be something different, but there was a big like case. You basically used to read case studies and he wrote essays on it, and he was talking about like the difference between say SMEs and then your large corporations. So if I want to make a change in my business, I just change it because I'm on my own. That's it. And if I have a little small team, it might be a little bit different, but essentially I'm going to implement the change. But in somewhere like you got 10,000, 20,000 employees, that's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm really envious of those people who have or are working for very small, dynamic, changing companies of like 5 to 10 people, where they all can fit in that room and they all have their expertise. Like I don't think I've had anything close to that experience of being in a really small team that can change really quickly. Because schools, like the schools I've worked in, like we're not always the best at changing quickly, are we, in schools and education? Like we like to think things through. Like it's very rarely you walk and go, right, this needs to change now, and it changes. Doesn't really happen. So that's one thing I've tried to think about as being like a business owner, and like just experimenting. Like that's failed. Why did it fail? Oh, that's worked. That's interesting. Why did that work? Haven't got anyone to talk it through. I'll just kind of sit by myself and think about, oh wait, maybe I should talk to people. And that kind of leads like into networking and communities, and I'm sure we'll kind of come on to that stuff.
Yeah, it's true. And I tell this story a lot, but when I first started doing exactly the same thing as you, and I was thinking what will work, what doesn't, and it doesn't matter even what experience you've got. Because I say, I did a business degree, but I don't even feel like I'm using that now. What I learned in my business degree, first of all, was over 20 years ago. So even marketing would have changed, would have gone in the bin and been completely different now with social media marketing and the fact that we do a lot of network marketing and I don't know, just lots of things have changed. I needed to go and find people who could direct me. And so I ended up going to some conferences, which were absolutely amazing and really inspiring, but I was still left with, right, how do I do it then? Like I've got the fire in my belly and I kind of got like a blueprint, but on a day to day, what does this actually look like? If I'm writing a plan, what's the plan need to include? And what is it? How does that really affect me on a day to day basis? And so I ended up like creating my own community, but at the same time, signing up to having a mentor and a coach and having meetings every month with like-minded people. And I just remember walking into the first meeting where there was other business owners who were earning 6 figures a month. I'm thinking, what am I doing here? You know, I'm barely scraping by paying the course, you know, in my business, let alone it's got. And I always talk about them because I found it fascinating. They were these two guys who had obviously run a really successful e-commerce business selling handbags, making 6 figures a month. And at that very first meeting, I was thinking, you're making 6 figures a month. Why are you here? You know, what is it that you need to learn? Like, because I'd love to be you. I'm sure I wouldn't be sat in a room like trying to learn if I was earning 6 figures every month. But then I going back every single month and then having, you know, somebody guide me through, it made me realize that it doesn't matter what level you're at in business, there are problems to overcome, and you're going to learn from somebody who's further ahead than you. And having someone go, what are you worrying about a personal account for? What are you worrying about this thing for? Because look, there are more important things you need to be doing.
Absolutely.
Right? And sometimes you need a little bit of guidance. No, it doesn't mean that you have to go and join, you know, masterminds or business courses or anything like that. But actually sharing a few ideas with people and asking a community can be really helpful.
It's something I wish I'd done earlier. It's something I still struggle with, Rich. Like I still find it hard to spend money investing in myself.
Do you?
Like, especially those early days and weeks where you go self-employed, like every pound, like you're kind of counting, there's a mortgage to pay, there's stuff to do.
Yeah.
So like, you don't want to spend money. I've slowly started to realize that it's not spending money, it's investing it. And I wish I'd got a coach sooner, and I kind of have worked with a couple of people, which is great. So if anyone's listening, it's like, oh yeah, I'm really early on. Like just go and get that network or that coach or that mentor and just see where it leads, because you won't lose anything from talking to someone about your business. You never lose anything.
No, it's so true. And most of the time people do have their own solutions, but I just don't realize it. And actually just saying things out loud. I think there's two things for me which made a massive difference. The first thing was just saying my thoughts out loud to somebody sort of made it real. And it didn't need to be like, even if they were really rubbish ideas or I didn't have the right thing, you catch it yourself. You go, do you know what? It doesn't sound right. Or it doesn't feel right. But then somebody just, I'd say twisting it, but almost like containing your thought and then putting it back to you in a way where it's manageable, or rephrasing it in a way where you go, oh, I didn't quite see it like that. It's just a different perception. And often somebody who's been where you have been before, and if they're good at it, they won't just tell you what to do. They'll make sure they give it back to you in a way where you can go, oh, right, that makes sense. Yeah, I need to implement this, and you get new targets. And the second thing is accountability. Like just saying things out loud, having targets that you're sharing with someone who, when you're going to meet them again in the next month, are going to go, right, what did you do? Like you not that you're under pressure to do it, it's still your business, but you want to do it because you know it's moving your business forward, or you're doing something that's going to create a system or create more leads for your business, or it's going to help you put more value out there, which is going to help you reach more people and perhaps even help you charge more and have more profit, which is, you know, we want to reach as many people as we can because we're educators and we want to help as many children or young people as we can. But at the same time, when you're running a business, we need to talk about profit. We need to talk about the money as well. And we need to kind of take the stigma away from that, because it's quite a big thing for us, I think, coming out of schools.
No, I completely agree. It's really hard. As you said, like we're educators, like if I could teach everyone for free, like that's what I do. But unfortunately, like it's not the world we live in. And there's kind of a balance. So like the more I'm able to do things that kind of help my business, the more free stuff I can offer, the more I can kind of broaden my reach, the more I can like help out with. So the example I would give is like, when I was teaching, I wouldn't have been able to go and help out at a local school, but now I've got a business that kind of does this stuff. I can reach out to my local primary school and I'd love to come in and like deliver these sessions and like got that flexibility. So I completely agree with that. Like ethical, moral side of running a business, I do find tricky. I try and
Mm,
find ways to kind of balance it in my own
yeah,
in my own mind and kind of
yeah,
accept it. As you said, like there is a stigma about talking about money, and we need to get rid of that stigma as business owners and business talk. It doesn't mean like we use the word entrepreneur lots and throw that word. I would never describe myself as an entrepreneur, but I am running a business. Like I see those as separate things.
okay, that's interesting. What would you classify as an entrepreneur? How is somebody who you would consider an entrepreneur different to you?
So an entrepreneur, in my eyes, without going back to my textbooks and checking the definitions, like they're someone who sees opportunities and they go for it, and they will risk, and they are innovators, and they're not saying I do this where the opportunities. They say where the opportunities, I'm going to go do that. Whereas I think a business owner is the opposite of saying this is what I do, where the opportunities for me to do that business. So
Okay.
like I am not a risky business investor. Like
Yeah,
um I'm not like Ben Francis starting Gymshark from his
yeah.
like uni halls. I use Ben Francis as an example for Gymshark because he was in the same year as me at uni, at
Was
the
he?
same uni.
No,
And I feel like he may have done slightly more successful
only
numbers.
just. He's just slightly
Only
ahead.
just, it's pretty close. It's pretty close. But like that's how I would see an entrepreneur. I would
Yeah.
not, and I think often people get in the mistake of I'm a business owner, therefore I need to be an entrepreneur. And I think they're separate, and you kind of need to embrace that.
So is it kind of like you see it as like that I'm an educator, I'm a business owner in my own right here as a tuition business, and I'm not really going to stray too far from that lane. Is that kind of how you see it?
Yeah, that's how I would see it. Like the core of what I do
Yeah.
is education, is tutoring, and I'm slowly starting to branch out and do other stuff, but I wouldn't describe that as entrepreneurial.
I see
There's
what you
maybe
mean.
entrepreneurial aspects of it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't describe myself as an entrepreneur. I would never use that. I would really not use that word.
My younger brother, who is way cleverer than me, we often talk about stuff like this. And when I was still a full-time teacher, I'd often talk about the things that were frustrating me, which is why I think I really resonated with your podcast earlier on, because you were talking about a lot of the stuff that used to frustrate the hell out of me. Because I'd be like, I think the one earlier was talking about where you use the phrases in education, and there was one about oh, we've always done it like that.
Yeah,
Oh, and
the worst phrases is education. We've always done it like that. I think it may have won.
it was number one. You both put it as number one. And I was like, yeah, but for me, that's on par with non-negotiables. Like that makes me shudder. And I feel like non-negotiables also a part of, well, you can't change it. So it's still about that, not giving us the freedom. Although I do agree with it should be non-negotiable to that you don't burn down the school, by the way. I think that's a really solid non-negotiable in there.
There are things that are non-negotiable, but I hate when people say like turning up on time is
Oh
non-negotiable.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, that's
it
so
kind it
true.
kind of is. Like if I call up and
Yeah.
say this horrible thing has happened, I'm going to be late.
Yeah.
Like that is negotiable.
I tend to come down the road of that everything is negotiable. Everything is negotiable, apart from the things that really aren't, like safeguarding, like just general stuff. Which generally the non-negotiable stuff is stuff you don't actually need to tell anybody. It's
Exactly.
yeah, and anything else. If you're saying this is non-negotiable, to me that's like, oh, this is definitely negotiable. This is 100% negotiable.
This
Just
is
because
you
you said
saying you
it.
don't want to negotiate this, which means I
Yeah,
should negotiate
and
this.
I always just paint it up to that's just really poor leadership. You don't want to explain your decision because you don't actually believe it, right? You don't believe in it. Like there's another reason behind it, and you either can't be bothered to share it or you don't believe in its purpose. So I used to share all this stuff with my brother, and and I used to like come up with solutions, but like just putting the wells to rights wasn't really making any real change. We'd just do this when we was driving to football. And he go, the trouble is, you're thinking about an entrepreneurial way. So, and I wasn't running a business then at all. That's just me being a teacher. But I think there's entrepreneurial way of thinking, which is, do you know what? I can set up a business and I can leverage some time back in my life, and I can do X, Y, Z because I know that's going to really help these children move forward. They're all business decisions, and that's about valuing your business. They are entrepreneurial ways of thinking. It doesn't necessarily mean, like you say, you are an entrepreneur. You know, because I think entrepreneurial things, exactly like you said, it's about being innovative. It's about looking at, okay, I'm doing this now, but where am I going to be in a year's time that's outside of that? Maybe a completely different leap into a different industry, or, you know, just using your skills in a different way. But definitely agree with you there. But yeah, my brother used to always say that. And now I can kind of get that. And I try to use that as a positive in my business as much as I can.
Yeah, what you were saying earlier of just not having ideas and then leaving them. That was something I really struggled with when I started business. Like, oh, this is a great idea. I'll do it. I'll wait. Oh, maybe I'll wait. Oh, but look at this idea.
Yeah.
Whereas what I do now is I will write down my ideas. I write them down in my little notebook that I have, and I'll come back to them. And I'll come back a day later and be like, right, that was just some
Yeah.
blue sky thinking at like 10 o'clock at night. Like, don't do that. Oh, wait, that's a good idea. And then I try and talk to someone. And then what I do, Rich, is I try and, like, if I think it's something I want to do and something I'm really going to do, I try and bring accountability into it, either by talking to someone really openly about, like, this is what I want to do by here, or I just sometimes put something out on LinkedIn being like, I've just
Yeah.
spoken with X about a great idea we're having, watch out for this. And then
Yeah.
I now feel compelled to actually do this thing.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there's loads of research about this, but I do feel like sometimes some research is made up by other people, and I just regurgitate it. So I'm always a little bit of a caveat. I don't know where this research is, but the idea is that if you write something down like a target or goal, you're just far more likely to go and reach it.
Yeah.
Even better if you put it in front of other people, because now you are someone at some point is going to go, Arthur, did you do that? Oh, I remember
Yeah.
that post you did last year, Arthur. Did you ever complete it? You know,
The
there's
way
something about it.
the way I would say it's like if you ever live with someone like a partner or a housemate or anything, you say like, I'm gonna put the bins out, and then you don't put the bins out, that annoys them way more than if you just didn't put the bins out without
So
saying it.
true.
Because you've said, I will take
Yeah.
responsibility over this, I'm gonna own this.
Yeah,
And we
it's
remember
true.
those things when someone comes to us with something and say, like, I'm gonna do this. Like we remember, don't we?
Yeah.
Especially teachers. I remember students coming up to me and be like, well, I'm gonna do my homework next Thursday. I always remember that. I always remember that student.
I want to go back a little bit, Arthur, because you was talking about like you didn't worry about the teaching. Like when you moved towards being a tutor and you started up your business, that was the one thing you didn't really pay much attention to because it was just your trade and your skill. What's interesting to me, like I've been supporting tutors over the last couple of years in courses and workshops and just general things, and I don't concentrate anything that I do with tutors on the teaching and learning because I the same as you, like it's your trade. Like you do know it. You might be nervous about it, but actually you just revert back to the norms of what you've been doing for the last. Sometimes some of the people moving away from teaching towards tuition, they've been teaching for 20 years and like, oh, I don't want to do a session. And I'm like, well, you do. You just need to go and do it for a bit, and then you'll figure it out because these instincts will come out. So, what would your advice be to somebody like that who is nervous about, I suppose, all of it, like the business and the teaching? What advice would you give to them?
I think with the teaching is you've got to have a bit of faith in yourself. If you say you want to be a tutor or you're going to do some tutoring, then at some point you're going to have to do some tutoring. So you can put that off. But I think if you think back to your early teaching days, how did you learn? You went in the classroom, you got things wrong. Best thing I ever did in my NQT year was got someone to come in with a camera and record me. So early on in my tuition, like I record all my sessions in line with like standard safeguarding policies. But I'll watch those sessions back. I'll talk to parents beforehand, but I'll be like, I'm gonna watch that back. Right. Why didn't I explain that well? Where did the tech let me down? Was I like, did I not connect with the student? Like challenge yourself to be better. And then once you realize like where you need to improve, which hopefully we're all doing every day, like find a way that works for you. So shockingly, I really like podcasts. So like that's my go-to. If I want to learn about something, I'll go and hit podcasts. Some people want audiobooks. Some people want those in-person sessions. Some people just follow people on Twitter. Like find a way that you can connect with your own learning that works for you. So there's no point in you saying, I think I should read educational books, therefore I'll buy loads of educational books. Doesn't mean you're going to read them. Doesn't mean you're going to engage with them. Doesn't mean you're going to take something away from them. And ultimately doesn't mean you're going to implement what you should be implementing. So find a way that works for you. I like podcasts. So I listen to podcasts. I'll then think what that's going to change about me. and how I'm going to change it, and then I'll go do that thing. So if I hear a great questioning strategy, again, I don't really focus on maths per se. I might just listen to general pedagogy. But like, if I find a really great questioning strategy, right, I'm going to say to myself, right, I'm going to try that with James next week. I'm going to try this. Right, I'm going to trade. I've got a Yushi next Wednesday. How am I going to use this new way of bringing out the quadratic equation? But like, make a real conscious decision, not just say, I have read about retrieval practice. I know the phrase retrieval practice. Therefore, I can now do retrieval practice. You got to go and then do these things. And you kind of just got to go for it. Like, will you have sessions that go better than others? Absolutely. Like, I've had 5 or 6 sessions this week, and like, I could already go back on each one of them and be like, I wish I'd done that thing slightly different, and I'll do that next time.
What's interesting to me is the fact that it's solely focused on what you're offering, right? So that's entrepreneurial. The fact that you are thinking like, actually, this is about me and what I'm offering. So at no point have we ever gone, I'm trying to do this in my business because I need to make 10K a month or 20K a month. It's been solely focused on, I need to improve this thing in my business, or I need to be reflecting back on my practices because I know that's what's going to improve that child's learning in that session. That's it. If you put the focus on that, you're not going to go wrong in your business anyway.
No, because you'll have students who then and parents who will then go and talk about you and post about you. Like, we all know those things, products we bought that were rubbish, and we tell everyone they're rubbish. But if something's good, you go and tell people about that, and that's backed up by research. How many people you go and tell about?
Yeah.
Like,
you make your product or service infectious. People will go and just spread the word. Yeah.
And ultimately, like, if you're not pushing yourself to be better, like, you're just going to start to slow down. And once you start slowing down, you'll feel it. You get a little bit excited about that student. You get a little less excited about like teaching that topic. And I'm not saying you have to love every topic and everything you teach. Like, I hate teaching histograms. I hate it. They are stupid, pointless exercises that should not be in the GCSE maths spectrum. I hate them. But that doesn't mean like I hate my job and what I'm going to do. Like, I love teaching a huge amount of portions. Or that histogram lesson, I'm going to think about, I actually really like working with that student. So how am I going to engage that student? Oh, and by the way, I'll teach them a bit of histograms. Don't get me started on histograms.
I've written it down now. Podcast part 2 with Arthur Moore.
Histogram special.
Yeah. I find that really interesting because often, particularly people who have been in education and teaching for a while, it's like letting go of certain things, like because we're not valued particularly well. And I mean, in a generalizing sweep, I don't think we're valued in highly by whether sometimes we're in schools that don't value us, or perhaps it's the parents that don't value us, or that's the way it's perceived. I think what teachers or tutors early in their when they're starting their business don't realize that they are going to be valued almost straight away. So as soon as you get your first client in, the parent is over the moon. They've got you. You know, they can't wait. They can't wait to pay you. They can't wait to drop them off. They can't wait to log on online, or whatever it is, however you engage with them. You know, they're so grateful that they found you. And it's a weird feeling at first. Oh, I found it weird.
I think it's especially sometimes you'll have parents who are like, oh, can we just do a trial session? Can we have half an hour and see how it goes? And then they have that half an hour, and as you said, they realize that the best is it. That is a great tutor I've got in front of me.
Yeah.
I want to absolutely like use them. I want to go to those sessions. I want to log in. I want to book some more in. Yeah. And that's because you as the tutor is doing a good job. And I think you have like, you got to back yourself a bit. Like, you have to believe you are a good teacher, communicator. And we all have different strengths. So I know tutors who like, they embrace the play aspect of working with younger students. I know tutors who have incredible subject knowledge, and that's their thing. And then you have tutors, like, I describe myself as like, I'm really passionate actually about getting kids to pass exams.
Yeah.
Like, I'm quite open about that, because especially in year 10 and 11, like GCSE A level, kind of like my real specialty. Like there is kind of this end goal, and like let's embrace that goal. And I
Important, yeah.
speak about this with parents. I'm not just going to be like, oh, we're going to do half an hour about the history of maths and we're going to love maths. No, we're also going to do stuff about how to pass that exam
Yeah.
and smash that grade,
Yeah.
because like that's part of the game of education. And that's a different argument, but that's part of the game we're in.
Well, yeah, maybe. Maybe that's part of the argument if you're a teacher in school, because you have to follow a particular kind of style or method, perhaps. And again, I'm talking out of my comfort zone because I haven't taught GCSE in school. Well, I haven't taught GCSE at school, out at school or outside of school. I'm looking at offering GCSE work from September. So I had a tutor come in this week and was chatting to her about, her setting up some GCSE support for what's now called Kudos Education, but it was Mr. C's tutoring up until about a month ago. And we were having a discussion, and it didn't get, I was going to use the word heated. It didn't really get heated, but she questioned whether I could get year 9s and 10s to tuition. She thought it was just going to be year 11s from January to June. And I was really confused about this because I do a lot of Kent tests, which is 11 plus, and I often get year 4s come in, and we really focus on English and maths, make sure we're really up to speed on them. We'll do a little bit of the other stuff that's going on, like the verbal and non-verbal, but then really focus on that when they're in year 5. So I know there's like if I can do that for Kent test or 11 plus when the tension isn't as high at all. I mean, I know it's high stakes for them, but not as high stakes as GCSE. If I can use the same messaging or similar messaging, like you've got a child who's getting a predicted mock grade of or a mock grade of sort of 3, and they need to get a 5, which is realistic, and that they're in year 9. I think I could encourage that family to invest in some maths tuition early on, because it would be far easier to get them to a grade 5 if they started in year 9. Is that been your experience since being a tutor? Is that something that you've been able
I
to
get a
do?
full range. So I get students come to me like starting year 9, say like the goal is GCSE. And then I have year 11s who will come to me January of their GCSE year and be like, the goal is GCSE.
And you're like, whoa.
Yeah, this year I offered I did a 6-week intense course, and it was literally called Get Exam Ready. Like, let's not fluff this about. Like, you've got an exam coming up. Let's do this. And I think it's important to kind of acknowledge like what the parent kind of wants to be the focus, but also like don't stray from who you are. So like a parent can come to me and be like, oh, can we do some year 2 embracing kind of the early idea of numbers? And it's not where my specialty is. It's not where my training is. And I'm going to be honest about that. I'm not going to just take any work that I can get, because I need to be delivering to a standard. So I do tutor primary students, but I wouldn't go down to like early years and do that stuff. And same, like I tutor A-level maths, but if a student comes to me looking for A-level maths, I say I'm not the right tutor for you, because A-level further maths is really hard.
Yeah. And again, that's a little bit like you've got a niche that's going to work, right? You've narrowed it down enough where you're probably getting enough business so you can make those choices. And that's the right way to do it. That is definitely the right way to do it, without a doubt. But I was kind of, I've mulled it over because we met actually about the end of last week with this tutor, and I was a little bit like, oh, I'm not sure whether that's the right way to go. Because I believe in like knowledge compounds over time, right? Your knowledge. So the earlier you do it, the better. And I know we can get children exam ready, like from January onwards. I know, I get that, but I'd rather be working with them in year 9 and 10, so that we've got a chance to really embed the knowledge, which is going to hopefully be
and I think that's
lifelong.
I think that's really similar to being in schools, isn't it? Like we've all taken classes through from like year 9 to year 11, and that's a joyous journey and kind of go through. But I think we've also, a lot of teachers like me will get the email on like February of exam year being like, right, we're changing this up because there's the focus. So I think you need to be honest with yourself, but also like just it's different times for different people. If a
Mm,
student coming to you in year 10 asking about their GCSEs is a different student coming to you in March where
yeah,
their
true.
exams are 2 weeks away. And you kind of need to like embrace that, be true to who you are, but also
Mm,
acknowledge the context in which you're working in.
yeah, it's
Like you can
interesting.
offer a product or a service,
Mm,
but if you don't acknowledge the context of where you're working or who you're working with, so that
mm,
I work with adults who are retaking their maths GCSE
mm,
to help with like literally getting a promotion at work. They need to go
mm.
and get their C. And I don't deliver that session the same as I would to a
No, of
year
course not.
11 who I've been working with. So it's
That's
like
really. I tell you why. Reason why I'm finding that really interesting is because what this lady was talking about with me. Because I was like, look, from a business perspective, like me trying to be the business owner, and then not quite parking what the children need because that's not my ethos. But I was like, it'd be really good if we had small groups because one to one, what we need to do is then we'd have to charge a lot more to make it viable. So I was talking about groups, and she was against the groups for the reasons that you're talking about. And what I've now reflected on, and actually just while chatting to you, is that actually what she's trying to do is make sure that she's staying true to herself, what she likes, and I know what, and she knows what's effective for that age range, and for the ones she's worked with in the past, is that one to one works. I can get them to do this because she was quite. She's basically written a program that works. There's probably a similar way that you have, Arthur. You kind of know what's going to get them from point A to point B. And at the time, it felt uncomfortable to me. But just reflecting on it now, is that she knows what works, and that's what I need to listen to, and to make it work in the business as well. So yeah,
and I
kind of
think
makes
there's
sense.
also like so I offer small groups. I'm actually offering like what I would call like proper regular groups from September. But the way I've kind of like I don't want to work with groups with 20, 30 students. Like
No,
I
no.
actually don't want to do it. So I'm not going to do it. So I am doing groups, but they are small. Like we're talking like 5 kids, absolute max.
Mm,
Because that's like I can often say it's like, oh, why don't I just do 30 kids? Oh, I could set them homework each week. What I could do is I could take a register at the start of
a lot
each
of work.
lesson,
Yeah.
and then they could give me their homework and I could mark it. And then I could have an Excel spreadsheet that I'll put it into. And then I could give that to someone. They could run that kind of group from a department kind of perspective. And then I could get someone called like Osted to come in and see how, oh, wait, I've just become a teacher.
Yeah, let's not replace school with school. Let's not replace stress with stress. Yeah,
Exactly.
this is similar, and I do small groups, and I got to the point this year where there was enough demand to grow the groups. I like groups of 4 on my own. I think that's really
Yeah, lovely
comfortable,
number.
and yeah, and been doing it for a couple of years, but this year I've gone really all out on the groups, and it's been brilliant. And then from about March onwards, things go crazy, and I didn't have the capacity to spread it out. So I was like, well, I can go to groups of 6, and then realized that the value dropped. And I felt it, and I was like, "Oh, I need to do something." So there was a couple of people who I used to teach a little while ago, who are now in their last year of their A level. So I was like, look, do you fancy coming up and being an assistant? They're coming out at the end of their time at grammar school. Kids relate really well with them. I know one of them wants to go on to be a teacher. And it's just worked brilliantly. Like it just changed the dynamic of that group from me being nervous about the value that was being delivered to, oh my God, it's actually changed it into even extra value now. So it might have a really positive impact. But I think that that's not been an overnight thing. That was something which, particularly growing groups has taken a good couple of years for
Oh
that
no,
to
it's
be
it's something
successful.
I'm massively in the journey of, and it is like just difficult. Like my business works on word of mouth. So that's like
Yeah.
I try and stay like because I'm not very good at it. Um, oh, maybe that's a very close mindset, Arthur. But I don't really enjoy going on social media and
Okay.
banging my own drum on Facebook and
Yeah.
Instagram stuff like that. So a lot of my work is word of mouth. That's how it
Yeah.
always has been, and I'm starting to try it and embrace that. But I don't want to go too far away from what my values are. And my other
Mm,
thing would be always like quite often as self-employed business owners, like there's a kind of maybe a social construct that we've got in our heads that we have to be entrepreneurs and we have to grow business. And I want 5 million turnover each year, and I
mm,
want to grow, and I want no. Part of what I do, part of the reason I became a tutor is I love spending the day with my 2 young children, spending all day with them, doing whatever, and then when I go to bed, coming upstairs and working. And I
yeah.
could tutor a lot more than I do at the moment, Rich. Like I have
Mm,
enough like demands. I can tutor all Saturday, Sunday, during the
mm,
week, all day. but I don't, because that's not who I want to be, and it's not what I want my business to be. And
It's such a
sometimes
good
we
point.
spoke about this earlier, didn't we? Like the pressure of the expectation of what it is to be a business owner. It's okay to say, like, part of this business is it is a lifestyle business and it works for me at this moment in my context.
Do you know what, Arthur? I don't know. You listen to podcasts and you've obviously consumed content around this before, so this might not be new to you. But something which popped onto my radar about 7-8 years ago was this idea of the new rich. You heard of this concept?
Yeah,
Yeah. So this is it. You just explained it, and it was like looking at actually having a rich life isn't about making 5 million a year, which is what it was in the 80s and 90s and the noughties, right? It was about, can I make as much money as I can and make as much money as I can, and then is there a way of me leveraging that out in some, well, maybe selling the business or doing something different with it, or maybe just moving on to somebody else to run. It's been a movement the last 10 years that actually people have gone, no, actually we want to slow down our lives, not speed them up. And part of that is exactly what you're talking about. Can I leverage some time back in my life where, okay, I'm going to be busy between the time of 5 and 8 every night. But in that 3 hours, that is going to provide my family and myself with everything that we need.
exactly.
Do that. That's it. That's a rich life. And that's your rich life, right? So everybody has their own version of what this would look like.
We all live in our own context.
Yeah, we have to. And building a life with the life that you want in a way that you want it, that's down to you to create it on your terms. And that's what running a business can actually be for you.
And I think it's nice to have things that you stay true to. Like when I left teaching, I said I actually don't want to lose all the teacher holidays, because that's are we allowed to whisper it? It's a massive bonus being a teacher.
I mean,
But
you can shout it loud and proud, mate.
it's great. I mean, they're not holidays, it's just you're not working. But like, so I don't work during August. Like my laptop will turn off, it will go away. I don't
Nice.
work during August. I take my 2 weeks of Christmas.
Yeah.
East I will still take 1 week completely off because I'm not willing in my context to give that up. So
Yeah.
just kind of have an honest, frank conversation with yourself of who and what you want your business to be. And there's no wrong answer because you're living your life in your context.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. I love it. I love this. I've actually really enjoyed this conversation because that I know that we'd already shared some values from listening to your podcast anyway. But the way that you've created your business, I can totally relate to that. I have the same reasons to you. Like my children are slightly older now, so I do have a little bit more freedom. Like my children at school. My last one left primary school last week. My youngest one. So slightly different. How old are yours?
Mine starts primary school in September.
Okay.
And
Nice.
then I've got a daughter who is like coming up to 16 months at time of recording.
Really young. Yeah, really young. Yeah. So you're just starting out.
Yeah, so I'm not in that place where I can take my laptop downstairs and get on with some work while they play outside. Just nah.
Yeah, you'd have someone on your shoulders. That's what used to happen to me if I went home and started trying to mark. I'd have kids crawling over me, wanting to wrestle on the sofa. Basically, that would be my life.
I don't even bother to try. I just don't think it's a fight worth having.
Arthur, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thanks so much.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, Rich. Just talking about kind of the challenges. It's nice to reflect, isn't it? So it's nice to kind of have a moment to reflect, and also as you talk, we spoke about this earlier. When you talk about things, you kind of are able to articulate. And I think you've just reminded me, like, I'm changing the business, I'm adapting and growing, but I also want to stay true to who I am and who I want my business to be.
I feel like we probably haven't covered everything that we wanted to. So what I'll do is we will arrange another date in the future where we can connect again, because I'd really love that. And we can, because there's so much more I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask you about what it was like teaching in Thailand, because you spoke a little bit about how it was slightly different, like how it was received. And
it's a podcast in itself, teaching abroad.
Yeah, I think that'd be really good. And I've got one final question, and you can be really brief with this, so you don't feel like you have to elaborate. You can if you want. When you teach the people, your young people in the evening, are they mainly UK based students?
Yeah,
They are.
Yeah, mainly UK based. I do a bit of international tutoring during the day, but that's kind of from my own network of teaching abroad. Like, teaching abroad is a very small world.
So that's something else I'll pick your brains about soon.
Yes, no, absolutely. It's just getting with the right crowd, isn't it?
I think so. That's what they tell me. I mean, I don't know. It's what they
Yeah,
tell
I'm
me.
not. I've never found that crowd, but that's what they tell me. So.
Well, I'm actually connecting with someone on Sunday who is in with that crowd, and I can't wait to connect with her and share her knowledge. She's promised to share a few little golden nuggets about that. So yeah, I can't wait for that one. But I will any useful info, I'll definitely send your way, mate.
No, perfect.
I appreciate your time, mate.
No,
Thank
awesome,
you so
Rick.
much.
I appreciate that. Yeah, let me know whenever you post or anything like that, and I'll repost and post about it and stuff like that.
Well, so do you want me to send you a copy for your podcast, or are you just happy for me to put this out?
Just put it out.
Okay, mate.
Put it out, and I'll put on our socials.
Okay.
Arthur speaking here and there.
Great.
You just put it out. Which one do you
Mine
use?
just goes on YouTube, Spotify, and then I chuck it in. We've got like a Grow Your Tutoring Business group on Facebook that's got about, I mean, it's about 2,500 tutors in there. So it'll just go out to them.
Perfect.
All right.
I'm starting a new podcast in September of like little teaching snippets for tutors. So like teachers submit their own teaching tip, and like I'm like in the time it takes to brew a kettle. So like 2 minutes. Here's a teaching tip from tutoring tips. Here's the top tip, and it goes away. I did it. It's something we've started doing with teachers, and it's worked quite nicely just to get. And I thought it'd be nice for independent tutors celebrating independent tutors.
That'd be amazing. We'll have to put it
rather than
like, on the group.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I've posted about it all on LinkedIn where people can sign up. So feel free to tag or whatever like that.
Yeah, I will do. Is there a link where people can book in?
Yeah, if they go to me on LinkedIn, there's literally a link. I'll put it in the chat right now.
Yeah, send it to me because I'll add it in all the descriptions and stuff as well into the Spotify and YouTube.
Okay, cool. So if I just if I message you on LinkedIn,
that'll be perfect. Yeah,
I'll just put a couple of links to things that if you want to put in, that'd be great.
Okay, mate. Awesome. Thank you so much. Go and enjoy
awesome.
The rest of your
no worries, buddy. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
And you, mate. Take care.
Take care. Bye.